right, so let me do a quick synopsis of the case. So let's see, Shannon McDonald hired Thomas Green and promoted him into a new position. And it seems to me like Frank Davis is typically the one who would have hired the person for this position, so he's a little upset that McDonald hired Green instead of someone that he wanted. And then there continues to be a little strife between Thomas Green and Frank Davis, particularly with working methods and work styles. And then there was a situation where Frank Davis in the meeting created some forecasts and projections that Thomas didn't agree with, so he vocalized that, and I think that's caused a lot of issues between them now. So let's see, the first question is, what are the key issues in the case? Who would like to start with what they think the key issues are?
I can start.
Sounds good, thanks.
Key issues seems to be really the relationship between Thomas and his boss, Frank Davis. Because it seems like Davis has the power to kind of give him, things to do and responsibilities, and he also has the power to report to Vice President Shannon McDonald. And so it doesn't seem that Thomas has problems with other people besides Frank. So there might be other issues, but it seems like their relationship is just the main one.
Sounds good, thanks, Reese. I think that both Davis and Thomas can get along with other people just fine, but when it comes to their specific relationship, they definitely have some issues there. Does anyone else have anything they want to add before we continue?
I think that it's hard in the very beginning because what's her name? The lady that actually hired Green told him straight out that this might be a bad issue. This might be tricky because he wanted somebody else. So to this thinking things might not be going so well, and I think that a bad start, so anyway.
Starting off with that, information that your boss basically doesn't want you. The only reason you're here is because I want you. So I think, it's definitely something that'll cause issues, which obviously it has. So that's a good point.
I think that only has the potential to cause issues, because if you really wanted to, you could also take that as a challenge and say, hey, I deserve this spot.
That's true. That's a good point. I think that attitude could definitely turn it into a positive. That's a good point. Thanks, Meg. All right, so let's see. So if you were Shannon McDonald, would have you hired Thomas Green? Why or why not? And I can start this one, I guess. So I don't know. The interesting thing that sticks out to me is the fact that either Shannon McDonald or Frank Davis can hire for that position, which kind of means, like, what is the structure of their company in terms of who determines who gets hired? I think that's a potential issue right there with how they have it structured, where they don't really have to consult with each other who they hire and come to a consensus, who the best candidate is. But as far as Thomas, I think he has potential, which McDonald saw in him. In terms of his abilities, I know that he's lacked some management experience, but he's definitely showed that he has the potential. The only thing, I think, for me, the biggest thing, if I was in McDonald's position, was the fact that she knew that Davis was going to hire someone else, and she kind of just went ahead and hired him anyway. I think that's the biggest thing that would have stopped me from hiring Thomas Green. I think there should have been a little more communication between Davis and McDonald, and choosing a candidate that they both felt comfortable with. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree that it is strange that there didn't seem like they talked about it. McDonald and Davis seemed like McDonald just decided, and that was that. That was a little odd.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree that the direct manager should have been involved, much more involved in that.
All right. Let's see. Do you have anything, Meg, that you want to add on that?
No, not really.
Okay, sounds good. So it asks us to describe a little bit about Frank Davis and Thomas Green. So what do you guys think that Frank Davis's end goal is? What is he trying to accomplish in terms of this case? But I think let's talk about what is he trying to accomplish in terms of his relationship with Green. So I think that's a really interesting concept. Is he trying to actually better Green and get him to where he needs to be the right candidate, or do you guys think that he just has it against Green so that he can get rid of him and get the person he wants in?
I kind of think that well, he's not holding his hand. I think he's actually trying to help him to do his job. I mean, he expects a lot out of him, but he has, he did go over what he needs, like what he needs to do, and things like that, and he just responds. So I'm trying to help him to do his job. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think Davis overall, I don't think that he necessarily cares as much about who got hired. I think he cares more about the job they're doing now that they're in. So I kind of agree with you, Eleanor, that I think he would rather see Green succeed and be able to accomplish the things that he expects of him rather than take the time and efforts and money to hire another individual. Because I know that that's very expensive for companies to train and rehire. So I think overall he would prefer to see Green stay, but just improve his work and his abilities. So yeah, that's a good thought, Eleanor.
I think
So
that at the beginning.
go ahead. Go ahead, Meg.
Okay. Well, I was thinking that at the beginning he should have been trained, because you usually get trained, whether it's a new position or an entirely new company. You get trained on how things are done in that company and how your new boss wants things done. And it never indicated that Davis took the time to, lay things out. Some of the things seemed like common sense that he was doing wrong, but some of them seemed particular to Davis. And it seemed like Davis wanted things done in the same way that he had done them when he was in that position. And so even having change, which McDonald wanted change, but having that change when he wasn't expecting it didn't seem like the best idea.
Yeah, that's another good thought. Because I think that Davis had expectations for Green to meet, and I think overall they just had different opinions and differing ideas on how things should be done. I think that Green felt that he had an adequate understanding and knowledge of his position,
and he felt that Davis was asking him to do things that weren't all that important. But I think, kind of like you said, Meg, that might be just because that's how Davis did it when he was in that position. So he, he's kind of partial to that way of thinking and that methodology. But I think it's important to understand that people have different ways of accomplishing the same tasks, and you have to be able to respect that people go at different projects and things with different directions, and they have different ways of solving problems. So I think that's something they both could work on, learning to value the opinion of the other one. I think right now they're kind of both stuck in their way and don't really want to change either one of them.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. If your boss is going to go to the length of having a review and yelling at you because you're doing these things wrong, I think you need to consider it a little bit more strongly.
Yeah.
Because clearly that's going to be something that goes into your HR file, and that's going to be a problem.
Right. And regardless of if he's right or wrong, he's still your boss, and
Exactly.
He's not telling you to do something completely ridiculous or unethical, you stop to respect that he's your superior.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So who do you guys think is most at fault for the current situation, Davis or Green?
I felt that Green was, because just the last things that were said, that he's really set on his way, and he's few things are really picky that Davis wants, but most things Green really needs to work on, but he doesn't. He wants to do it his way, and that's a problem. So I think mainly Green.
Yeah, good. What about you guys, Megan, Eleanor?
Agree. I think Green, honestly, I'm having a lot of compassion for him. I kind of think goal is to raise himself up in the company, and there's a hierarchy. He has a boss, and while he should express his opinions, he still needs to follow protocol and be a team player, and he's not. So yeah, I think it's like 9% his fault or his issue. So that's what I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think that oh, sorry, my page just fell off. So yeah, I agree. I think that Thomas said he has his ideas, and I think he could bring value to the company, but I think the way he goes about it and the way he goes about correcting issues that he sees, I think he's just a little cocky, kind of like you said, Eleanor, that it's really his only goal is to build himself up. He's not too worried about other people around him. So I think that that's definitely something he needs to work on. But I also felt like Davis could definitely improve. I felt like the way he handled it could definitely be improved. I think that he, instead of like teaching why he wanted things done a certain way, he just kind of expected it to be done, And I can understand where he's coming from, but if you truly want someone to change, you have to help them see the value of your point of view. So I think he could work on that. But overall, I think Green is more to blame for the situation.
That's about how I was feeling. There's a lot Frank could have done differently. Like when he first realized that there was a difference of opinion, he could have taken, oh my goodness, my mind just blinked. He could have taken Green in and talked to him and said, here are my expectations, and tried to discuss those things with him back when there was first an issue, back before he got corrected in front of the meeting and all of those things. Yeah. I do think that Green is mostly at fault. His negative attitude is not helping anything, and it's making everything worse.
Yeah.
I do think he goes pretty well with the people under him, but He does not do very well at all with Davis.
Okay. All right. So let's continue onward. So it says, how does power and office politics come into play? And I think that's kind of basically, we've already discussed it. They're both, Davis is in charge, so he wants to maintain his superiority. You know, he wants to have control over the situation. Or Green wants to continue to grow in the company. He wants to basically be his own man. And so I think there's kind of a power struggle there. Davis wants things done his way because he is the boss, but Green doesn't want to listen to him because he feels that he personally has better ideas and that his analysis and his forecast and his projections are more accurate than his boss's. So I think there's a big power play between them. And I kind of like what you said, Meg. He has, especially with the projections and the forecasts, if he would have just brought that up in a different way, him and Davis could have discussed it. So, what do you guys think about power and office politics?
I personally think that slow the ride, rather than they would do a lot better. I also think what bothered me about Green was the fact that he was taking his issues and talking to like a lot of other people about them. Well, it's good, to get mentored by other managers. I don't really think that's what he was doing. I think more trying to prove which isn't good off. That's not the way to go about doing things.
So what was the question?
How does power and office politics come into play?
Office politics gave him that position.
Yeah, that's true. If it wasn't for his meetings with McDonald and stuff, he never would have got that position. So that's very true.
Yeah, it's kind of strange because he did a great job of connecting with McDonald, but a terrible job of connecting with Davis. So that's just odd.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder how, if Davis would have been the one interviewing him and meeting with him, how his actions would have differed. Did he just get along with McDonald in order to get the position? Would have he acted differently if he was trying to impress Davis so that he could actually get the position? And now that he's in there, does he feel like he can act however he wants because he feels like he's good to go? He's got McDonald on his side. So that was another thing that I thought of that could definitely make a difference. Okay, so what are each of their conflict styles? So I don't know exactly what this means by conflict styles, but I think that the one thing that stuck out to me was how Green handled it after he had those meetings and those emails from Davis. And it said that instead of like talking to Davis and being like, okay, what do we need to work on? What do I need to work on? What do I need to change specifically? Let's set goals. He just started avoiding him. And I think that was the last thing that Davis wanted. Davis wanted him to come together. Let's compromise.
Let's collaborate.
Yeah, and I think that the fact that he just avoided him, that kind of shows that he wasn't willing to change. He was stuck in his opinion and his mindset, and he was kind of hoping that just waiting out the situation would make it better. But I think that was his style, whereas Davis wanted to collaborate more
and come together to a consensus.
I think that's what Davis wanted, but I don't know that that would have gone very well. And I don't know if it's because of Green's negative attitude. And if he had come in humble, it would have been different. But his first review went horribly on Davis's part. And Green was expecting it to go well. So it's not like he brought that negative attitude into the meeting. So I'm not sure what Davis would have done if he had come to him and said, you know, what do I need to do better?
Yeah, that's a good point, because I know from the reviews I've seen, they typically will say like what you're doing good and what you need to improve on. But this review, like it was just, these are all the things you're doing, and I don't appreciate it. You know, he didn't compliment any of the good work he's done, which put Green on the defensive instead of, you know, okay, what can I do to change? Which definitely is something, like I said, you know, most of it's on Green, but there are definitely things Davis could have done that might have changed the situation.
All right. So, what can either one, I guess, Davis or Green, what can they do to salvage the situation?
I think that Green can. The things I put in the case response was that Green can get a lot better at like making presentations and getting data. He can get a lot better at office politics. Not that he needs to be like evil or conniving in the politics, but he needs to understand like the boss is the boss and should do his best to kind of do what the boss wants. And just that, yeah, so those were the main things. Like he needs to get better at making presentations and data, and then he just needs to learn how to do those politics a little better.
I agree. I think that one of the first steps Green needs to take is to just humble himself, and instead of avoiding him, say, okay, this is what I'm going to do to change. And if that doesn't work, then you can go from there. But I think that's the first step that needs to happen. And same with Davis, but I still feel like Davis has the higher ground because, you know, he has expectations of what his employees need to get done and what they need to accomplish. And Green's kind of just doing his own thing. So I think the biggest thing that would make a change is if Green humbled himself and said, okay, I'm going to try and work harder and meet your expectations. And I think that would show to Davis, and I think Davis would probably, at least hopefully, change a little bit the way he's taken care of it so far. I think if he doesn't change, then obviously the situation's not going to improve, but I think both of them definitely need to make changes for anything good to come of it.
I think he does need to Green needs to approach Davis and see if they can, you know, if being humble and everything, if that helps to, you know, learn exactly what he's supposed to do. And maybe he needs to ask for training on exactly what he's supposed to be doing, like how often he's supposed to be updating his calendar and how much information he's supposed to be giving his subordinates and things like that, because maybe he just doesn't realize that he's supposed to be giving them the data or more of the data than he has been. But if that doesn't work, then maybe it's time to call in a third party because they both seem pretty gridlocked into their positions.
I agree.
Other thing is that as far as training goes, initial training, you know, this is a very high-end position. You know, it's an executive position, and Green hasn't really had experience. Like he was kind of promoted above where he probably should have been. Just general from Davis or from, but just this is what you're expected to do at this level, kind of thing. I think you're right that he's lacking that. So.
I agree. All right, let's see. So, what gospel connections and personal applications do you guys have any personal experiences or gospel applications?
Can you repeat that question?
Yeah. Do you guys have any personal experiences that can be applied to this case, or do you think of any gospel applications or connections that can fit in kind of with what's going on in this case and the power politics and stuff like that?
I just know when you go into a new organization or a new position with new teammates, you just have to adjust it first. Like over time, if there's problems, you can make changes. But you have to adjust well at first. And Green didn't adjust at all. So he just went in and was like, this is how I'm going to do it. And there's no problem with it. Just he was pretty rebellious right up front.
Yeah, I agree. I think the high priest group leader in one of my previous wards, he was very strong-minded and he had his opinions. And he always would challenge the bishop on any opinions or activities or anything. I don't know what it was or what he felt, but he always seemed to challenge whatever the bishop wanted to do. If bishop wanted to have a ward activity on this day, he would challenge it. And I don't know why he did that, but it just kind of made me think of a similar situation. The bishop has the keys, and overall his opinion is the one that really goes. He makes the overall decision. And while the bishop seeks the advice and the counsel of other people, you still have to respect who has the authority, and it's the same goes with bishop. He has to seek that counsel and be willing to change and listen to their opinions. So that's one thing that I've personally seen in my life, that you need to respect the authority, but the authority also needs to be willing to listen and apply the things that you have to say as well.
All right. Anyone have any experiences they want to share, or should we continue? All right. Let's see. So the conclusion, it has the rest of the story. I'll go ahead and read it really quick. It says, after McDonald's February 5th, 2008 email, Green took the offensive against his boss. He crafted a series of memorandums, emails, reports, and projections that exposed inaccuracies and creative forecasting. This data enabled Green to build some alliances with other marketing personnel who used the data to ultimately side with him. On April 4th, it was announced that Frank Davis was being moved laterally to an undefined special project. However, Green's tactics were seen as overly brutal by many in the company, and although he won the battle against his boss, his career was irreparably harmed. McDonald distanced herself from him. By July of 2008, Green announced he was resigning from his position to pursue full-time studies for an MBA. So that's what actually happened. Green took, instead of saying, okay, what can I do to go along with what my boss is expecting, he kind of went against and everything he could to kind of destroy his boss's credibility, which in the end it hurt both of them, I think.
So I think that
Yeah, and it seems like
if Green would have
together.
taken the approach that that we discussed, you know, that we all agreed that he should humble himself, go talk to his boss, and work on it, the outcome could have been completely different. But he took the complete opposite. You know, he got himself wrapped up in convincing people that the boss was wrong, that his projections were wrong, and did everything he could to bring him down, which I think is really interesting. Because it made a void between the other people in the company, so he didn't really have much of a future there. But I think why he left and went back to school. Do you guys have any last comments about how it ended?
Yeah, I think it's kind of what I said is just like when you go into an organization, you kind of have to adjust it first, and you gotta wait to kind of fight those battles. And so yeah, he decided to just go and take it on right away, and he won that battle, but he hurt himself in the long run. So it's like when you go into organization and some things are wrong, you want to fix them, but you kind of have to be careful about it instead of just starting war right away, because that hurts.
Yeah, I agree. All right, well, thank you guys for your time. I'll go ahead and stop the broadcast.